Hey everyone, sorry I haven't been on in a while. I've had a lot of things going on. Currently working on the homestead, trying to get it ready for the snows and winter and everything else, and we're getting pretty close at that. And just overall busy, and I've got some other things going on. One of the problems I've run into, if you can call it a problem, is that with deeper realizations that I've been having in life and with the spiritual practices that I don't really feel like talking a lot anymore. And that can be a problem if you're supposed to be creating videos and content for other people. So I hate to say that I kind of have to force myself to do this, but it's something that needs to be done, and that's okay. I'll adapt to it. I'll figure it out, and all will be good. Later on, probably in December, I'll probably release a video specifically for end of the year, to go over where this group has come this year, like what all they've done, what all I've accomplished, and what the plans are going forward into next year. So that'll be interesting. But some of you have been really wanting me to get into a video that goes over things that can help you in your spiritual practice. So that's what I'm going to do now. All right. So what I'm going to talk about is getting your logic out of your practice. Logic can be a wonderful tool. It can help you solve problems and, figure out things that you need to do. But logic is also a barrier. It's a very large barrier. And some people, when I'm trying to help them flip the switch to where they can actually have the deep realization of the mind and themselves, they get stuck on the logic part. You are trying to solve the problem of the mind by using the mind, and it doesn't really work that way. So logic can be the enemy, which is still the mind being the enemy. And if you're one of those people that prides yourself in your intellectualism, then that is pure ego, and it's going to hold you back. Okay? There's nothing wrong with being intellectual. There's nothing wrong with having logic. The problem is how you use it, right? So some people throughout life, they will develop a mental toolbox. And this mental toolbox will have tools in it that help them throughout life. They'll be like, well, this is a certain such and such a paradox, or this is a such and such a situation, or this is a such and such a game, or such and such a trap. And what these are is a basic set of computer programs. Basically, what it is in computer programming, you have an if-then program, or if-then command, which basically goes like this. If this happens, then I want you to do this, right? So that's in computer programming, but it's also in the mind. And whenever you're using tools that you've added to your mental toolbox, you are basically creating pre-configured responses. If I hear this, then I'm going to say or do this. And that's not free thinking. That is quite literally the opposite of free thinking. That is going by a cookie cutter approach to responding to the world. And at some point in your life, it may have been absolutely necessary. But when you're diving into the nature of spirit, the nature of the mind, the nature of reality, logic fails, right? The reality that we live in is absolutely immense in the way that it operates and flows. And I mean, if you think about it like a supercomputer, but a supercomputer like a trillion years in the future, then your mind is about as effective at solving that problem as a little Casio watch, a little digital watch that you buy. It just doesn't have the computing capabilities to be able to understand it. So if you find yourself trying to use your mind to solve the problem of the mind, of spirit, of the nature of reality, of what you are and are not, then that's where it's going to fail, right? The practice is that I have people do, the practices that many other Eastern spiritual practices all around the world use, are designed to point you in the direction of the mind so that you can see what it's doing, so that you can have the realization that you aren't it, and it is not you, and that it does its own thing. The mind is a compulsive software, designed to keep you alive by creating scenarios based on past experiences in order to improve your chances, your odds of surviving. And when it's bored, it creates scenarios. So you cannot outthink your own mind, especially since it's better at doing it automatically than you are. And it knows everything that you think. It knows all your secrets and all of your insecurities and everything. You cannot outthink that. That's like trying to play hide and seek in a room that has no furniture while the other guy's watching you run around trying to hide. It doesn't work, right? So if you are getting stuck in discovering your own mind and you're trying to logic your way through it, if you pride yourself in your intellectualism, this is where you get stuck at. Now, there is some good news. Your brain is essentially a quantum computer. The part that we use to logic is a very small computer compared to the quantum capabilities of the brain. Deep realizations can happen simply by looking at one concept and looking at another, and the brain just makes a connection and there's a realization. It's like, oh, wow, right? And if we can tap into that, if you can actually tap into the quantum nature of your mind, then you don't have to think about stuff because it just happens. And this is where, in a lot of the Eastern systems, especially yoga coming out of India, they have these big mystical experiences happen, but it has not much to do with thinking so much as just allowing the mind to do its own thing. When I'm working with a person and I'm trying to help them realize the mind, what I will do is I will feed them concepts. And I will give them this concept, and then I will give them this concept, and I will give them this concept. And even though the mind is blatantly obvious to me and other people like me, they can't see it. You are so close to your own mind that you can't see what it's doing and how it's doing what it's doing, right? Or how embedded in your thought processes that you are. So I give the people these little pieces of information. The subconscious chews on it, and then it comes back later on. They're like, oh, wow, I can see it, or I've had this realization or that realization. It's not like they were actively thinking about it. The brain just made its own connections on its own, and that is essentially what we're trying to achieve here until we can get to the point of seeing the mind. So I hope this helps. If you're struggling with trying to get your mind to flip so that you can go on to the next phase of spiritual practice, feel free to reach out to me. I'll do the best I can to help people. I do have a Patreon. I do coach people one-on-one. I don't ask for a lot of money either. And I'm willing to help anybody, especially if they're in like serious mental distress, like suicidal or whatever. Feel free to reach out to me. In the future, I plan on building an office on my homestead, so I'll get back to having a nice background instead of being inside of a vehicle. But for those of you who are still here watching me, thank you for that. And even though I don't really make anything on YouTube, liking and subscribing can help me in the future. So if that's all you can do, that's great too.